Thanks for joining today. Great to see some familiar faces, some new faces, and yeah, we'll be recording this session too, so we'll be able to share it across some variety of mediums after this too. So this is laying out, what is the agenda for this session today. We're going to start by doing some introductions. I'm going to give an overview on what is Tech for Dreaming, what is kind of the future vision for this group. And then, yeah, fortunate to be joined by two guest speakers here. We've got Karen Conkley and Dashiell Barkas. So Karen's going to be talking about that latest research study that she led with Northwestern University. Really cool study where they actually induced lucid dreams in study participants, and the lucid dreamers actually communicated back from the lucid dream into the waking world, answering math questions, answering yes or no questions. Opens up a lot of possibilities for future study and just kind of future possibilities in lucid dreaming. So great that Karen can join us, and Dashiell's with us too. She's going to talk about her Dream Phone project. So it's this device that's going to detect REM sleep, induce a lucid dream, and allow her to send messages from the lucid dream into the waking world. She's going to describe that in full detail, so I'll leave it at that for now. And really cool thing with this is Dash was also a participant in that Northwestern study that Karen led. So we're going to do, we're going to have that researcher and study participant perspective. So hopefully we'll have a good back and forth there about, what was it like from the participant perspective too. Then at the end, we'll talk a little bit about mugwort and how we can, kind of experiment that over the next month. I figure in these kind of monthly meetings, we can have kind of a hack of a month that we just, as a community, try out different things and then report back what happened. So we're going to be doing mugwort for the first one of those. And then going to leave time for open topics at the end of that. I'm going to hop back to my other browser tab, because I think I got to click in to admit people. So every time I hear the beep. Yeah, that one's actually my wife. She's going to help with some moderating duty too from the living room. Hey. Yeah, and when we have, at the end, if we have time, we'll just address any open topics or, kind of just do a general Q&A. I'm willing to stick around for a while, and, we can just kind of play that end section by ear. So we're going to start with some introductions. I'll go first, and then we'll have Karen do a quick introduction, and then Dash will do an introduction, and then we'll just kind of go around the circle real quick with some short introductions. Yeah, so to start off with, I've been lucid dreaming since 2014. Really happened, it really coincided with resolving sleep apnea and starting to meditate for the first time. Had this tidal wave of lucid dreams kind of come out of nowhere when I got that fixed. Had hundreds of lucid dreams after that. Some of them pretty profound, which really motivated me to get deeper and deeper into lucid dreaming and motivated me to form this group. We can talk more and more about that here. As mentioned, kind of at the banter at the beginning, I do work at Aura right now. So we got the Aura ring. It's a smart ring that measures sleep, HRV, temperature, variety of other metrics. Before that, I was over at Fitbit in their health solutions group. And then before that, I was at Medtronic across cardiovascular and diabetes business unit. So yeah, got experience across wearables and med device, background in business, biomedical engineering, chemical engineering, and then a little bit about why I started the group. Like I'll talk about in the next few slides, we're convinced there's just a ton of potential within lucid dreaming. And I think tech has a lot of potential to unlock that potential. And it's, I was kind of surprised there isn't a group focused on this intersection of technology and lucid dreaming yet. So it seemed like, an opportunity to form a group just based on all that potential. And viewing my role here is, just here to facilitate, coordinate various knowledge sharing, collaboration, experimentation, not looking to be here as like the teacher or the preacher. Really just looking to facilitate this community and, hopefully get the help from other people to co-facilitate. So look forward to exploring with all of you. And I'm going to hand it over to Karen for a short intro.
Hi, I'm Karen. I love lucid dreaming. I started it when I was an undergrad. I was like reading exploring, a field guide to lucid dreaming. And I was like, this is awesome. I wish this could be my job somehow, but I have no idea how. and then I like read an article about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, people write articles about lucid dreaming. I want to do that. So then I tried to do that really aggressively. And then I did. And so, yeah, now I'm at Northwestern doing studies on lucid dreaming, and it's really fun. Yeah.
Nice, thank you. And then Dash.
Hey.
I got a flattering picture for you, wired up with all kinds of electrodes here.
Yeah, that's the picture that's getting around everywhere. That, and Karen did that to me. She made me look like that. So, yeah, I'm Dash. I started lucid dreaming in college about 2010, and I actually got into it from going on a diet and then realizing that I could eat whatever I wanted in dreams if I learned how to lucid dream. And then I got interested in, I think I heard about the studies that had been done by Keith Kearney and Stephen LaBerge, and thought, like, well, what if we can communicate even further and with Morse code? And so I started, that was when I actually got interested in tech. And slowly over time, I started to learn to code and pursue this project that I'm working on now. And I was also did ran a meetup, the lucid dreaming meetups here in Chicago.
Nice, nice. And yeah, thanks again, Karen, for Dash for joining. It's great to have both of you here. And yeah, thanks to everybody else for joining too. And I want to just go around the horn and do intros on other people that are here. So one by one, we can go off mute. I'll just call people out as I see them from left to right. And just a way to keep it short, we can say, let's try to keep it to 3 words or less. It's kind of a challenge. What do you most want to hear about during this event? And like that'll help us kind of steer, the discussion in like certain ways. You can go a little bit longer than 3 words if that's too much of a constraint, but it's a little bit of a game there. So as far as like left to right, as I see it, Noli, if you could go first. Oh, I think I put you on mute because I had some background noise, so I can't hear you. So we'll circle back to you in a minute here. Jojo.
Yes, it's so nice to see you all, Karen and Carissa, everyone. I'm so excited. We're going to join our efforts and collaborate on some Arduino projects. And I'm considering a new mask design. I basically copied Stephen LaBerge's Nova Dreamer. I call it a dream catcher. And I've had some success with it. And so it's great to meet you all, and I look forward to joining in future conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. And next person I see is Lana.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm Lana. I know a ton of you in here. I've also done some interviews with Dash, so but Karen wasn't there at that one, so I'm excited to see the collab between Karen and Dash. What do I want to see? I guess my 3 words will be expansion, entrepreneurship, and technological magic. That's technically 4 words.
Yeah, we can hyphenate some words.
Overachiever. Thanks for having me.
Those are good. Thanks for joining. And then Nick.
Well, I'm very much a lucid dreaming rookie. I think I've taken a 5-year hiatus since when I was really deep into practicing it. So taking some time to catch up, see what everyone's been up to, learn about some of the new innovations in this space. I'm really excited about.
Sounds good. I worked with Nick in Medtronic Diabetes back in the day. So a couple of continuous glucose monitoring nerds here too.
Right.
All right. Next up, Bill.
Hey, I love the research. I love what you're doing, Dashel, from what I was able to see online. I've dabbled in a few things myself. Went on a couple of Stephen LaBerge's retreats, the original one, well, one of the very early ones at Stanford, actually. And I guess in a couple of words, I'm curious what's not in the research paper, like what are some of the actual on the ground experiences, like about things that worked and didn't. And then also for Dash, just some of your successes and as interested, I'm always interested in the things that don't work too.
Yeah, thank you. And Yeah, so Troy from Eastern Australia.
Hey guys, so Troy in Australia. I head up Australasia for Transformative Technologies. It's a movement supporting people or entrepreneurs and innovators to build technologies focused around mental health, well-being, human performance and potential. And also have my own company, I Am Connected, where we're applying a whole range of these different technologies with the view of increasing consciousness. So for me, this is tech for consciousness is the 3 words. I'm a rookie with lucid dreaming, but Brian's been supporting my efforts, and I'm just really excited by what this whole dreamscape and technology can activate and open for us. I think it's a frontier waiting to be discovered. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thanks for joining. And yeah, Troy and I actually, we interviewed Robert Wagner yesterday too. So hopefully that video can get shared at some point. We went into kind of like open frontier and like what's possible. So very cool stuff there. And then Jay, your next one on my window here.
Sure. Hey, my name is Jay. It's always weird to give your internet credentials, but if there was ever an appropriate place, it's probably this. I'm the host of the Lucid Dreaming podcast. I'm the moderator of the Lucid Dreaming subreddit on Reddit, and I've started a company called Paracosm Labs to build a sleep wearable device for lucid dreaming. A bunch of this has been on the back burner because of life reasons, but I'm finally re-emerging from my hibernation, hoping to do more interviews on the podcast and continue the work on Paracosm Labs. And you know, Brian, I couldn't agree more about the interest in, especially in the intersection of technology and dreaming, about the potential. And you know, you've reached out to me, and I was like, oh, finally, this is great, and this is a great way to maybe connect with the community. And what I would love to see is kind of what people are working on, and just kind of reconnect to this path I've been on for a while. So, yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks for joining. And already we have 4 different people working on their own lucid dreaming devices. So, yeah, very cool stuff.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. And next one on my list is Robert. Are you there? He might be away. He's got mic doesn't work. He's interested in learning more about brain-computer interfaces for education and future lucid dreaming tech, he said in the chat. Nice. Yeah, good stuff. Kathleen's my wife, so I'm going to skip over her because my son is probably screaming.
Hey, can't I say something? I can say something.
Yeah, go for it.
I don't practice the same way that Brian does, and like I'm very jealous. So I have some FOMO, but I don't get to sleep as much as I'd like to. So I'm really interested in the idea of like cheating. If I can use some of the things that you guys are working on to better understand like what he's experienced in lucid dreaming without having to go through like the years and years of practicing, I would like to hack. So thank you for having me and letting me listen as the novice. And Connor says hi.
So help my wife hack her sleep to get more lucid dreams. That's going to be one of the objectives of this group. She can be a guinea pig. I don't think Connor would be a guinea pig though. He's probably too young for that. And then it's like Carissa, are you there? Yeah, we're not hearing you. It looks like you went off mute, but we can't hear you. So we'll go to Kenneth.
Hey guys, good morning from India. The whole 3 words I think I'd have to use is tech for dreaming. So I'm really interested in the tech involved in dreaming right now, what the current topics are, and getting to know all of you. So kudos and cheers to be here. Yeah,
thanks for being here. So we got a few different continents covered here. So we've officially gone global in this meetup on the first attempt. Yeah, so I'm gonna go through an overview of tech for dreaming. I want to keep it pretty short because I know we got some great guest speakers here in Karen and Dashel. So I want to make sure there's enough time to dig into that research study and the Dream Phone project. But being that this is the first event for tech for dreaming, it seems like it'd be amiss if we didn't talk about, like what is this group? What could this group become over time? So I'm gonna start off by starting with that. Yeah, Steve.
You skipped over me. I may have been gone while you said my name.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I apologize. No, I'm here almost as a consumer. It seems like the last time I had lucid dream was probably 20, 30 years ago, and I'd like to get back to that feeling I had before. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm coming into somewhat blind. The reason for being here was actually based upon one other participant in your group there. We want to connect via dreaming, and so that's kind of was our entry into this. And so we'll see if we can use your tools to help with that.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, thanks for joining, and thanks everybody for joining. So yeah, we'll get into just an overview of tech for dreaming, what it is, what it could become in the future here. So I'm going to go over to my other browser tab so I won't be able to see you guys. All right, yeah, so tech for dreaming. So first, I think it makes sense to just, I think everybody here has a pretty good foundation on what is lucid dreaming. But put simply, it's realizing what is dreaming within a dream. And when you're in that state, I think there's just like so much exploration that can be done. It's really only limited by your imagination. And we'll get into what that could mean in a few slides from here. And it's really nothing new. People have been lucid dreaming for thousands of years. There's the dream yoga tradition from the Tibetans, dating back thousands of years. Aristotle, he wrote about it in the 4th century BC. So nothing new. But what is new is now it's just people are starting to believe it's real because there's some scientific validation of this phenomenon. So in the 1970s and 1980s, Keith Hurd and Stephen LaBerge, they did studies demonstrating that this is actually a real phenomenon. They did this by having people go in with predefined eye movements, and then when they became lucid in a dream, they would actually execute those eye movements, left, right, and they'd be able to see those in the sensor set that they have in the sleep lab. These EOG sensors that can track eye movement. So they're actually able to scientifically validate that, yeah, this is actually a real phenomenon. Pretty basic study, but it's it was helpful to get the field started. I'm going to admit Benson here. And yeah, so really the scientific exploration of lucid dreaming, it's just beginning. And I think the discoveries could be profound. So why isn't lucid dreaming more popular? I think big thing is it's hard. More than 50% of people have had a lucid dream at least once. But it's not easy to routinely access a lucid dreaming state. There's certain cognitive techniques or mental techniques. That's things like keeping a dream journal to improve dream recall. It's things like doing daytime reality checks. It's things like waking up in the middle of the night and going back to sleep with the strong intention to lucid dream. So these techniques exist, but they don't work for everybody. And it's difficult to build a habit around them because still the success frequency is still pretty low. So it's difficult to build a habit. And really, I think, this presents an opportunity, and that's really one of the big objectives of Tech for Dreaming. Really want to focus this group on the application of technology to make lucid dreaming more accessible for more people. We're going to do that by using devices and supplements. So devices with a variety of sensors that can characterize REM sleep and other physiologic metrics that are relevant to sleep. And then different stimulation modalities, whether it's light, sound, direct current stimulation, ACS, other modalities exist. Being able to get the right dose of stimulation to the right place at the right time to be able to induce a lucid dream, but not wake a person up. Easier said than done. There's been plenty of Kickstarter campaigns and Indiegogo campaigns. They've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, but haven't really delivered really good products at this point, mostly marketing hype. So really hoping that this group kind of get together and develop some products that are actually effective at scale. The other part of that is around supplements. So using supplements like galantamine, there's kind of a cousin molecule, huperzine A, variety of other molecules like mugwort, vitamin B6, variety of options there. There's kind of less validation that this works yet. There's some evidence around galantamine in a 2018 study. So a lot of room to explore in supplements too. I think it makes sense to focus on what is this group not focused on. So we're not going to focus on those kind of cognitive mental techniques, not really going to focus on mystical experiences, kind of differentiating, is it a lucid dream? Is it an out-of-body experience? Not really going to share a lot of lucid dream stories in these meetups. I think all that stuff is super interesting, but there's general lucid dreaming groups that already cover that really well. So I'd rather keep this group focused on that intersection of technology and lucid dreaming. And then kind of begs the question, like, why do we want to do this? Why do we want to make lucid dreaming more accessible? I think the better question is, why wouldn't we want to do this? There's so many reasons, and I got a list of them here. Psychological research. Imagine the possibilities if you can talk to your subconscious mind at night directly, whether it's talking to dream figures or talking to the dream itself. There's a lot of room for research and exploration there. Gaining creative insights. There's a lot of examples in science and art around people gaining creative insights within lucid dreams. Practicing skills. So your brain actually thinks you're partially awake in lucid dreams. So there's some evidence of gaining neural plasticity and being able to rewire neurons by practicing skills in dreams. There's medical research capabilities here. Definitely heard anecdotal examples of healing in lucid dreams, but how cool would it be if you can get a whole cohort of people lucid in a dream in a very routine way to actually study this at scale and try to get an actual well-studied, like well-designed study to actually prove some of this stuff and discover the mechanism of action for some of these kind of healing examples. Mental health. This is one of kind of the more proven benefits of lucid dreaming, from PTSD to nightmares to other kind of mental health issues. And then like consciousness research. This is the one that actually gets me the most excited. Being able to explore, is this actually me interacting with my mind, or is it me interacting with something beyond my physical body? Is it a means to interact with something non-local? Gets into the woo-woo space, but that's the stuff that's pretty interesting. It's a new frontier, and lucid dreaming opens up that frontier for exploration in a pretty cool way. And really, when you think of it, it's an open platform for exploration and experimentation. So as far as what I see this group being, I think it's a hub for learning, as far as a place to share information and knowledge and really curate the latest research studies and content. I think it's also a hub for collaborating. So connecting people that are doing projects, like some of the people on this call right here, and then connecting them with people with the right skill sets that can help develop their projects. So really being that, matchmaker between people that are looking for projects and projects looking for people. Also see it as a hub for experimenting. So, hopefully we can develop some of these solutions and actually try some of them out and push the boundaries of what's known. When I think about, what the future could look like in this group, fast forwarding, maybe 5 years, 10 years from now, what could this look like? Within that learning bucket, I could see this being the trusted reference point for the intersection of technology and lucid dreaming. In collaboration, hopefully we actually develop some meaningful businesses and devices coming out of this beyond the marketing hype that's been out there before. Not sure exactly what that looks like. Maybe it's an incubator accelerator kind of program where we line up the right kind of advisors and people with expertise to help move projects along. Can help with recruiting of talent for these projects, and maybe even helping with funding to move these projects along. Again, haven't scoped this out completely, but that's a good future potential of this group. And then really cool part here is just having a thriving community of people that are exploring this space and butting up against what's known in scientific discovery, gaining new insights into the nature of reality. I think we're going to use this as a platform to explore beyond what's known at the boundaries. And that's why I'm going to end on this quote here. It's this Carl Sagan quote that I like, and it kind of speaks to what we were just talking about there, where, really, I think we can explore with an open, but then skeptical mind, having a blend of both of those. So the quote here, too much openness and you accept every notion, idea, and a hypothesis, which is tantamount to knowing nothing. Too much skepticism, especially rejection of new ideas before they are adequately tested. And you're not only unpleasantly grumpy, but are also closed to the advance of science. A judicious mix is what we need. And really want to, highlight that advance of science. I think there's a lot of potential here to use lucid dreaming as an open platform and using technology to make it more accessible. So this is my last slide here, just a call to action to, please join us, get involved. I do not want to be a one-person show running this community. Want people to help, plan events, curate content, just grow and engage the community in whatever way you think is best too. So if you're interested in being part of this, reach out to me. There's my email address. Definitely welcome any help that's out there. We got a variety of, social media sites here. So, connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, Meetup, Reddit. I'm going to start a YouTube channel, which we'll post this video on. So plenty of opportunities to connect with us. So that's my spiel on tech for dreaming. And I want to hand it over to Karen, but I want to quickly pause to see if there's any quick questions on any of that and to give myself a chance to have a sip of water. All right, cool. So yeah, Karen, thanks again for joining us. It's awesome that we able to get you to join us. I know this research study created a ton of buzz in the space. A lot of people talking about it. It seems like there's just a ton of potential on what, you know, like I know at the end of the paper, you're calling it interactive dreaming. It just seems like, you know, it demonstrates it's possible, but it also opens up a ton of possibilities in the future for other research and exploration. So I know you have a variety of animations on the slide, so I could stop sharing my screen and then you could share yours if that works.
I updated it slightly if that's okay. So
yeah, sounds
okay.
good.
Here.
We'll switch over here.
So wait a minute. Hold on. I have to go into my system preferences. Blah blah blah. Share.
I did enjoy the cartoons in the research paper. Was that you or is that a colleague that did that?
No, that was my colleague Christopher Appel, who is also super into tech for dreaming. And
nice.
Yeah, he drew it on Paint. Wow. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's see. Google Chrome might not have screen sharing permission. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah, I think you just got to go into the settings and then unlock it and
not be able to record the contents of your screen until just quit. Oh no.
Yeah, you might have to close out of the Chrome browser and then open it back up again.
Okay, I'll be back in a minute.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I know people use Zoom quite a bit more than Google Meet, so there's a few quirks there.
Yeah, it amazes me that Google has like these little glitches in it. You would sort of think that they would like be, you know, just nailing it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, they do plenty of other stuff pretty seamlessly.
Hey Brian, since you're into tech, what is your personal preference of using or reasons behind using Google Meet versus Zoom?
Yeah, it was our company, I think, got spooked at the privacy concerns before. So we used to use Zoom and then we just switched over to Google Meet. And we use things like Google Drive anyways. So it just like kind of fits together more for our company. But I have a slight preference for Zoom, but yeah, it's pretty similar.
Google Voice is awesome too. I recommend that.
Yeah, it's pretty helpful. I used that once for phone banking, so people didn't have my real number. And then I could use the area code of where I was harassing people by phone banking.
What's Google Voice?
You can pretty much set up your own phone number and then call from that number. And you can actually route calls from like that are sent to that number to your other numbers. So
yeah, it rings right through to my business phone, and it's nice to keep their personal calls on that. That's the way I do it.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah. And welcome back, Karen. Looks like it's working now. I think you're on mute though.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to try to put you on a separate screen and then see if you can still see my slides. Does that work?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, perfect. Great. Cool. So thanks. I was going to present my study that just came out on real-time dialogue between experimenters and dreamers in REM sleep. So as you can see by the extensive list of authors, this was actually a super collaborative study with 4 different labs in 4 different countries. And so there's 5 people that are actually the first author on the paper who all contributed independent data sets, and we combined them all together for this study. So first, what we did was we induced lucid dreams in our participants, and each team did this in a different way. So in the German group and the French group, they used experienced lucid dreamers. So the German group used people who had at least 35 lucid dreams in their life, recruited on online forums and stuff. And then the French team used a participant with narcolepsy, which is a sleep disorder when you can enter straight into REM sleep. And so people with narcolepsy have more lucid dreams. So the French group actually only had one participant who just had a ton of lucid dreams in the lab. And then our group and the Dutch group used a method that we recently developed called targeted lucidity reactivation. So in this study here, that was kind of where we tested this method and developed it. And 50% of participants had a lucid dream in a single 90-minute morning nap. So this is what that method looks like. Participants come into the lab in the morning for a sleep study. And then while we're wiring them up to electrodes, we explain lucid dreaming. So in this original study, it was really like, how little do we need? Like, could we really have lucid dreams in 2 hours with no prior experience? So some people knew about it, but some people didn't. So we just talked about it while we were wiring them up. And then before people went to sleep, we did this kind of accelerated training where we associated a sound or a light cue with a lucid state of mind. So we'd play a sound cue that just sounded like this, boop, 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 or flashing lights. And then we'd give them this kind of meditation prompt, like, it goes like this: as you notice the cue, you become lucid. Bring your attention to your thoughts. Notice where your mind has wandered. And it goes on. And then we'll do that. And we'll do that like 4 or 5 times. And then after that, we just present the cues and say, every time you see or hear this cue, become lucid, to try to make that strong association. And then when people go to sleep and enter REM sleep, right away, we start presenting the cues again every like 30-ish seconds. And then we tell people to give us that signal if they become lucid. So that's also what we did for the two-way study. Okay, and so here in the two-way study, we had 35 participants and 57 sessions with REM sleep. This is across all the teams. And then 15 sessions with signal-verified lucid dreams. So Brian already explained this, but this slide explains it again. Person's laying here, they look left, right, left, right, left, right. And during wake, that looks like this. So you can see these big deflections in the eye channels 3 times. And then during REM sleep, you can see that there are those big deflections again, but they're paralyzed. Their brain waves are a little bit more flatter. And also you can see over here, these are not lucid eye movements, and they're really different from the lucid eye movements. So in this study, what we did was after participants signaled that they were lucid, ideally, or sometimes if they didn't, we just tried to ask questions anyway. So we would ask questions. So the French team asked yes or no questions, and then the US and German teams and the Dutch teams all asked math problems. And so in our team, we just asked math problems by like saying them very softly to people while they were asleep, just like 1 + 2. And it was pre-recorded, so we could really carefully control the volume. And then the German team used math problems that were encoded in Morse code. So they had all their participants learn Morse code on the computer before coming in, and then they presented the either flashing lights or beeping tones in Morse code. And then the French team also used tactile stimuli. So they tapped their participants on the hands and asked, how many times did we tap you on the hand? And then to communicate out, participants used eye movements, as has been extensively discussed already, or facial muscle contractions, which is a relatively new type of communication that hasn't been used much before. So the French, they either furrowed their brow or kind of scrunched up their jaw like this, like in a kind of smile. And they found that it was a pretty reliable signal because people never did that outside of the lucid dreaming period, in comparison to like other studies, like Stephen LaBerge has done studies with like fist clenching, and that sometimes it doesn't come out as well as, so anyway, facial muscle, interesting new direction to study more. Okay, so the results, so here's an example of a participant. This is their hypnogram. So they were awake and then they went through all the sleep stages, and now here at the end, they're in REM sleep. So we gave them a lucid cue, that's this blue line. And then we gave them math problems here on this red. So here they signal, I'm lucid, which was 3 left rights. And then we present 8 - 6, and they answer 2, 8 - 6, 2. And afterwards, we woke them up, and they said, I was in a parking lot. I thought, okay, this is probably a dream. We asked if they remember hearing any math problems. They said, I think I heard 3. I answered 2 for all of them. I don't remember what the first one was. I just remember the last one was 8 minus 6. And so it's kind of interesting, like throughout all the examples, people tended to remember that they did math problems, but they weren't always perfect at remembering what happened. So here he said he heard 3, but he only answered 2. We actually presented 2 more math problems that he didn't answer at all, which weren't 8 minus 6. So anyway, yeah. So how often did people answer and not answer? We had 158 communication attempts total during signal verified lucid dreams. So that means after somebody gave a lucid signal, we asked questions. And so that's 158 questions that happened during REM sleep, during signal verified lucid dreams. So 18.4% of those were answered correctly. 3.2 were incorrect. No response was 60.8%, and ambiguous responses was 17.7%. So here's an example of an ambiguous response. We asked 2 plus 4, and they gave this. It's not a clear signal. The dreamer does remember doing a signal, but we had people rate how many eye movements happened after each question. They didn't know what the question was. And if the rating was, if there was like a majority, like 3 people said 2, then we would count that answer as 2. And so here, all the raters gave different answers, and so it's counted as ambiguous. And some of these ambiguous is also that some raters thought there was an answer and some raters thought there wasn't an answer. Cool. So here's another example from the Dutch team. So they present 1 plus 2 in REM sleep, and the dreamer answers 3. And they say that the math problem came into their dream and it felt sort of like a radio in the car. Here's an example from the German team. So 4 minus 0 was presented in flashing lights in Morse code. And in the dream, the lights started flickering, and they recognized this as the flashing signal from the outside. And here's an example from the French team. They asked, do you watch football? And the dreamer gave the signal for no. And they asked, do you like chocolate? And the dreamer gave the signal for yes. And in the dream, they heard the questions as though it was God coming from the dream. Yeah. So that is my presentation. And let me know if you have any questions. Yeah, thanks for listening.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, thanks for running through that. And yeah, definitely want to open up to questions from the group here, but maybe to start with, was there anything that kind of surprised you most as you're doing the study that kind of like caught you off guard based on what you were expecting going in?
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to figure out where to put you guys. Yeah, well, I guess one thing that definitely surprised me is we were kind of not sure that like just directly talking to people. Can I stop sharing my screen? Okay, cool. We were not sure that like directly talking to people would work, because we thought that like it might get so distorted in the process of getting into a dream that people just wouldn't be able to understand us, or they wouldn't be able to answer math problems. And so that was one thing that I was surprised by, that many people just heard the problems exactly as they were. And there wasn't even like as many beautiful examples of dream incorporation, you know, where a dream character walks up to them and asks them a math problem. A lot of it was less beautiful than that. It was like they heard it even though, and it wasn't related to the dream or something like that. So I think that kind of incorporation situation surprised me.
Yeah, and Dash, maybe you can talk about from the participant perspective, did you answer any of these questions in the study? And if so, what was that? Like,
I was curious what I was, like you had the ambiguous answers, you had the correct answers, and I was curious what I was categorized as, because with me, I made contact. So you said, I said, oh, I see the lights, you know. For me, it was cops lights, like from a cop's flashlight. So, but I realized where I was, sent the signal. And then it was, the question was like, are you dreaming? And then I think I said yes, and then I couldn't hear, like I heard the next one, but I didn't understand it. And I just said yes, because I wanted to say, make it louder, but I had no way. So I was curious, do you remember what you categorized that as?
Yes. So here, I can show Dash's example, which was great. And I often like think of your example as an example of like kind of two-way miscommunication, and that it demonstrates that a dreamer is capable of having an extremely, like is capable of being extremely coherent in a dream and really making the attempt to communicate, and yet is not quite, you know, the communication wasn't perfect. So I can show that one.
Yes, Dash, we've discussed how those lights get morphed into police cars. For me, it's a fire truck passing by. Look, everybody that's had the red lights go off, come up with something different. A toaster oven glowing. I actually saw Jacob's ladder one time in a dream. And it's the rare occasion when you teach yourself that the lights mean that you're dreaming, that those type of devices work.
Yeah, I found that like I'm not positive about this, but I think that lights result in more interesting dream incorporation than sound. Like in the original study that we did, when it was both lights and sound gave people lucid dreams the same amount, but the lights tended to be incorporated more contextually in the dreams, where the sounds just tended to like be like more overlaid on the dreams or whatever. It was like less frequent that the sound came from a cell phone or something. Okay, so here's.
Yes, that's cutting edge, fantastic science. I love it. Please, I'm enjoying this to death.
Thanks. So here's Dash's example. So here is a light cue that we presented, and then Dash gave the signal for I'm awake, but actually one more signal. So I'm awake was supposed to be 4 left rights, and here's 5 left rights, but basically I'm awake. And then here we were using up down to mean no. So I'm gonna show her a dream that she gave afterwards, but just to like preface, Dash did not know that, like, she didn't know what this looked like when she was giving her dream report. It was just completely, she just remembered it all. So I see a flash of lights through my closed eyes and think, oh shit, it's the cops. Then I realized it's not the cops, it's a lucid signal. I got excited and accidentally signaled left, right 4 times instead of 2. And so then here's the signal for no, and then the signal for I'm lucid. I realized that was too many. So I signaled up, down twice for no, as in no, I'm not awake, and then signaled left, right twice, as in yes, I'm lucid. So then this was like a follow-up study. So we were trying to ask other questions. So we asked, are you dreaming? Which was supposed to be the first of a different conversation. And there was a yes signal, but it was a little bit small. So we asked it again, are you dreaming? And here's a bigger yes signal. So we think, oh my gosh, we're having a great conversation. But actually what happened was Dash remembered, yes, I heard a question play over the speakers, but couldn't make out what it was saying. I didn't know how to indicate that I couldn't hear the question clearly, so I just signaled yes. And then here, I heard it again, but I couldn't make it out again. Again, I signaled yes. Then I realized it was probably the question that goes, can you hear me? Which was the test question. And I accidentally answered yes both times because I couldn't hear it. I thought, oh shoot, that's gonna mess things up. So basically, I think that it demonstrates a few things. And one of them is that a limitation is the dreamer's vocabulary. So like here, Dash had a very small vocabulary that consisted of I'm awake, I'm lucid, yes and no. And she needed to say something else and she couldn't say it. Maybe if we were using Morse code, she could have said it, but it's kind of hard to read that in real time. So, but it also demonstrates a great example of how a dreamer can be really coherent during REM sleep and all this stuff can happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that you had that example queued up. I don't think we even planned for that. That's awesome. And like nice point on the limited vocabulary. I've heard, actually, I think it was somebody responding to a tweet that Dash sent recently about like vocal vibrations, and like maybe that can somehow be a way to like get communication out from a lucid dream. Like, have you heard anything about that? Like kind of training somebody's like normal vocal vibrations and then like translating it?
Okay, I've been I originally thought that that was like going to be a really great next communication out. But what I've heard since then is a lot of it. I think one reason why it hasn't been followed up on in a dream is because the muscle atonia is generated in your brainstem. And so the vocal vibrations rely on your vocal cords contracting, which would probably already be blocked by the REM atonia. So, but who knows? Like, I don't think it's actually been tested. That was just somebody's idea about why it wouldn't work, but maybe it will work.
Yeah, so NASA did research several years ago on subvocal speech where they weren't actually literally picking up like vocal vibrations, but they had like a handful of EMG electrodes around the neck and were picking out, and were just kind of like using essentially machine learning to get a signature. And people were just saying things in their head, and they had pretty good results.
Whoa.
But it was during wake, or was it during sleep?
During wake.
Okay, yeah.
As soon as the functional magnetic resonance imaging technology shrinks down to be portable and affordable, they'll be able to pretty much tap in, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that would have to be pretty different than it is now, but that would, and maybe quieter, but like you could say a lot more.
It's interesting that. Sorry, go for it.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna ask, like Dash was saying that she couldn't. I think I remember from our interview, she was saying like the questions are played out over a speaker, and she was far away from the speaker, so she couldn't hear it. So, do you think you would get quite different results or better results if, like, say, everyone had a headset on or that kind of thing?
Well, what we do is before sleep, we calculate their minimum auditory threshold. So like people sit there and we gradually increase the volume until we can say what's the very quietest you can hear, and then we increase it some more and say what's comfortable. And so I think that an actual issue in the example that I showed you with Dash is that I was asking questions that I hadn't directly tested, and so I think the threshold was slightly different, and I think that that was actually a problem and kind of like a lame reason why she couldn't hear it. It would be like way cooler if it was because of sensory disconnection during sleep or something. But I do think that one interesting thing that we haven't tried that has been proposed is bone conduction headphones, because people—
That's what I was about to bring up.
So it would be interesting to do a study
Bone
testing
conduction.
that. They sound more like they're from inside your head, and maybe that helps you not wake up or something.
Now, Karen, I've talked with people at workshops, and I understand that the olfactory sense is not regulated by the thalamus in the same way. So getting information in through the nose is a key way. A girl I met put her stinky garbage can next to her bed, and that was all it took. She smelled it, and boom, she was in a lucid dream. So that's an avenue worth investigating for sure.
There's been some studies on that. So Daniel Erlacher recently came out with a study about trying to do that. And I don't think that it worked very well, interestingly, because smell does work for other like sleep stimulation studies with memory and stuff like that. But I think that there's a little bit of a, like, I think that there's good anecdotal examples, but there's a little bit of iffy literature on smell incorporation in dreams. Like, I think that some of the most, there's not a lot of studies on it, but like the only one that I can really think of that had significant results.
I'll watch for your next PhD.
The emotion. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll watch for it, Karen.
Be called Dash by the garbage can.
Karen, I'm curious, when you guys were doing the targeted lucidity reactivation, what percentage of people, so you're getting like 50% of the people that were having lucid dreams, what percentage of wake-ups were there in there, in terms of like sleep disturbances?
Right. So in the targeted lucidity reactivation experiment, the original one, we didn't calculate that directly, but I don't know, actually. It'd be interesting because some people definitely did wake up from the queue, I think. And then if they went back to sleep, then we queue them again. In the two-way study, we also didn't look at that, but recently got asked the question. So I was kind of looking at it more casually. And what tended to happen was that people entered REM sleep and we presented questions, and they would eventually wake up at the end. And sometimes they woke up sooner. And at the end, if they didn't wake up, then we would wake them up. So it's kind of a little bit difficult to say, like, how often the stimulation actually woke them up. But the basic answer I have is that it definitely did sometimes, but not all of the time. So like, not every time somebody didn't respond, it wasn't always because they woke up, but sometimes they did wake up. And I kind of feel like I feel like the bigger problem is when you present it and they don't hear it or wake up. I feel like you can kind of do things to help people not wake up. I feel like you can reduce the intensity, blah, 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 but it's kind of harder to say, how do you actually get somebody to perceive something during sleep when they're not perceiving it?
Do you see indications on the polysomnograph that somebody's about to wake up?
Yes. And Stephen LeBurge recommended something that I've been trying to implement and I just don't have a heart rate monitor, but he said that if you present sounds at different levels, you could tell on the heart rate before the PSG when someone's going to wake up. So that might be something that's even easier to implement in tech than it is in the lab. Not that it should.
Does the heart rate increase, or does it become, or is there a change in the variability? What's the signature?
I'm not sure. I know that the heart rate variability increases when you're in REM, but I think that the actual heart rate increases. But that might be something you could look more into, because I haven't directly tested it myself, because sometimes the heart rate just doesn't show up when I put electrodes.
Yeah, and good questions. I think Jay might have had a question, and I see Steve has his hand up too. I don't know, Jay, if you still have one, or
Yeah. I mean, just before the question, my comment about the bone conduction. In my tests, the problem with at least the ones I've tried that are on your temples or something like that for bone conduction is that they do produce audible audio. Maybe that's not a negative necessarily, but they weren't optimal as the ones I remembered from like high school experiment, which is if you're doing it through the teeth, it really sounds like it's coming from inside your head. Like if somebody's talking in your head, and it wasn't like I couldn't hear it with my ears. And I know that there are devices for people hard of hearing that are using like a tooth kind of implant, but that's not something I think you could do while people are sleeping and might accidentally swallow it or something. So yeah. I don't know, but it's definitely something I've looked into, and I think is still worth looking into. My question is, was there, other than, I mean, this is incredible. I think even just the statistics of the number of people you've had in under EEG in a sleep lab, lucid dreaming alone was worth the experiment, let alone everything else that you indicated. But was there like a particular goal in mind that you thought that this would lead to more research in the future, or some specific application?
Yeah, well, I think that, like Brian, I'm most interested in the applications for like consciousness research, but I think in a little bit of like, I think even before you get to the woo-woo stuff, you could like do, like, I'm hoping that like you could translate like a lot of psychology experiments that are normally done on people who are awake, like working memory tasks and long-term memory tasks and, perception tasks and stuff. And I think you could translate those to people who are dreaming and like give them those tasks while they're dreaming. And then you could like characterize how consciousness is different in another state, which I think could be helpful for like understanding how consciousness is overall in relationship to the brain. So that's
fantastic. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, very cool. Steve, I see you have your hand up. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. How much of the data, or referring back to your chart, Karen, how much of the data is automatically collected versus manually typed in by somebody who was an observer of the process?
Right. So all of the data in our study that was published in the paper was recorded on EEG. So we had all the EEG saved. And then we actually had a fifth team from Russia that was originally on the paper. And so when we submitted it, we had to that's when we got the blind reviewers to go through and say all of this happened during REM sleep, and also all of the signals are what we thought they were. So the Russian team didn't want to submit all of their data, which was admittedly a lot of work. So they ended up not being on the paper. So everything that you see in the paper was objectively recorded and then looked at by 6 different people who were saying what happened.
Okay. I don't have the same technical background. Actually, I write enterprise software, but I don't have the same dream technical background as the rest of you. But so the portion where if you're recording my sleep pattern, this device knows when I enter REM and it knows when I'm lucid dreaming, yes?
Well, actually, recording your brains and then brain waves, and then an experimenter is looking at it and determining when you're in REM and when you're lucid dreaming.
I know my watch tells me that I've had REM sleep during a certain period of time at nighttime. Is it similar to that at all?
Yes, it is similar. It's a little bit like there's not a one-to-one correspondence between what the like wearables say and what is PSG says, because the sleep rules are really weird, and probably most of the time it doesn't really matter. But if you're saying like somebody was in REM sleep in this 20 seconds when this communication took place, then it becomes like very relevant for scientific purposes.
And the last question I have, and this may sound like a really mundane thing compared to what you're talking about globally and et cetera. Can this process, or what we're talking about here, somehow send a message to a friend of mine that I have entered REM or a lucid dream, or potentially that case, so that person can interact with me? That's the reason we came to this presentation in the first place anyway. And even though it sounds mundane, it probably could become the largest aspect of the the experiment anyway. But is there anything here that would allow me to zap a message over to that person saying I'm in this position and have that person write back and ask me questions?
I think that,
but not questions that I don't want to answer.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that would be something that would be really cool to do down the line. I mean, right now it can still be a little hard for just a dreamer to communicate with somebody who's awake, but I do think that is a really interesting application. And Stephen LaBerge, had the idea of having two dreamers in a lucid dream at the same time, and then like meeting in a room, and like one draws a shape with their hand and they both follow it with their eyes. And then if their eyes are doing the same thing at the same time, you can say that consciousness exists outside of your body. So nobody's done that yet, but maybe you could. That'd be cool.
Okay. Yeah, but imagine the implications on when that happens. Like our understanding of reality totally shift when you're like, man, I can communicate with other people like across the world. that just kind of shows like some of the implications here. And as far as like sending out messages, I think when Dashiell talks about her project, she's has a goal of sending out a tweet from within a lucid dream. So you can imagine, like, instead of sending a message on Twitter, sending a message to a friend, or having some kind of trigger to then initiate lucidity in somebody else by like initiating some kind of like stimulation, like from somebody across the world. And then there can be a message attached like, hey, come find me in the dreamscape. So
Steve,
I think
Steve,
totally
it's
possible.
really a lot easier than you think. The mask I have now is fully capable of doing that. It sends messages through a COM port to a computer that can be relayed to anyone. What Dash is doing is actually sending it over text messages. So it's here and now, and we'll talk more. We'll talk more about that.
Yeah, I was curious about the nature of the data, whether it's JSON data or text data, et cetera. It'd be interesting to see what you could do with the data.
Yeah. So a lot of potential there for this kind of interactive dreaming. And Karen, when you're kind of assessing when to send the message, like was it pretty much just okay, after a certain amount of time of them being in an REM sleep stage, then send the signal, or are you looking at like kind of more nuanced signals in the EEG and other various sensors that are on the PPG or PSG?
Yeah, it's a good question. So what we did for this one was to send lucid signals. We waited until basically they had their first eye movement, because it can be kind of hard to capture REM in the lab. So we wanted to like maximize our queuing and REM time. So I'd play lucid signals, and I'd play like 10 of them or something. And ideally the participant would give a lucid eye signal from the dream, and then I'd start presenting questions, and I'd present some. And then if they seemed to wake up a little bit, or they seemed like their sleep was less stable, which you can kind of tell from the brainwaves, then I'd pause until it seemed more stable. It's always kind of a guessing game. Like if you think they give a response, you should wake them up, or should you keep sleeping? But I do think that something I really hope we can work on in the future is using machine learning to decode like when somebody might be able to answer, because there's a lot of times we presented a question and they weren't able to answer. They'd wake up or they wouldn't hear it. And so it'd be really cool to like use some machine learning on the EEG to say like, okay, now is the perfect time, they'll hear you. I have no idea like what really that would be, but that's what I dream of. So
it's like when you're on Slack or some inter-office messenger, like you get the little green circle indicating like I'm available. Like now you can send me a message. But yeah, based on like those signals from the sensors.
Yes, exactly. There's a lot of studies coming out lately about like how there's more sensory disconnection, like you're more blocked from the outside world while you're having the eye movements themselves. And so like we haven't directly tested it, but it'd be kind of interesting to see like there's long periods of REM where you don't have eye movements, and those might be like very critical for getting stuff incorporated in dreams.
Nice.
I wonder if
maybe you just said it, but did when you were like figuring out when to trigger the lights, where there was like a time when you could tell that the participant was more likely to see the lights?
No, but yeah, we just wait until they were in steady REM and then we do the lights.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe I'm thinking of something else, but I thought you had said that there was something about if like the visual cortex had like less activity or something like that, something that implied that there was less visuals in the dream.
Yes, well, that was for a specific study, but that was like, you can see this brainwave in the back of your brain that indicates that you're waking up, but it also happens when you close your eyes when you're awake, and so that is possibly what you're talking about.
Oh, I don't know. I think it was something else, but I don't know. Maybe I'm remembering wrong.
Sorry.
I thought I'd ask you, like, can you like figure out this perfect time to flash the light? And you had said something about watching for some signal that implied there was less visual activity in my dream, but now I don't know what it was. Doesn't sound right.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I don't remember saying that, but it's kind of interesting. I mean, I guess if you have a lot of those brainwaves, then there could be less visual activity in your dream, and maybe that would be probably a bad time to present the light, because then you'd be more awake. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, cool.
Maybe you told Dash in a dream.
I don't know. It was like a good theory too. It was like that if you see an explosion in your dream, you won't be able to see the lights. So I don't know where it came.
Right.
Yeah.
So that probably actually relates to what I was saying about the eye movement. So people think that when you make an eye movement in a dream, it relates to like a more exciting thing happening in your dream and blocks the sensory disconnection. So that might be it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Were you, I think, Jay has a question too. Then I got a follow-up question.
Yeah, I was wondering, I'm trying to remember I think there was a study about how when you're sleeping in a bed that you're not used to, or in a place that you're not used to, the brain maintains a little more awakeness to be able to kind of gauge the environment. I wonder if that actually contributes, coincidentally, to being able to do some of these research in a lab. Or
Yeah, I think that it actually might. And we're trying to turn this method into an app, which is like not very high tech at the moment. And it's lower tech, so we're not detecting REM, but it also isn't working as well as it does in the lab. And so like, it's kind of interesting to think about, like part of it might be that you're in a new environment and you're focused on lucid dreaming. And so if you can actually fall asleep, there's a couple other variables besides just the sensory stimulation and the training.
Yeah, that makes sense. I see Lana's got her hand up too.
Yeah, so there's a question in the chat, and it kind of relates to the direction I'm looking to take some of my research. So the question in the chat from Robert is, he's wondering about the limitations of the brain and what it can answer and do whilst in REM, and like, getting short answers from participants, but how long can you stay on a question? And that ties into my questions with my research is on lucid dreaming for mitigating depression. And I think I was talking with Dash about, the concept of, would it be possible to, even coach people whilst they're lucid, or ask them questions and get them to think about their emotions, or like have those longer format conversations whilst you're in that kind of lucid dream space. So I'm curious about if you know more about that, or why currently like answers are just set on yes, no, or like very short format things.
Right. Yeah.
Have you talked with Kristen Lamarca about that? That's her specialty. And she's doing wonderful things in that arena. It's comparable to some of the new immersion therapy that's better for some people than others. But if you haven't spoken with Kristen, yes, I think you would really enjoy that conversation.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the therapy is like a really cool idea. I put it on my slides, although I haven't done anything, remotely related to that yet. But I do think that or PTSD, or people who have nightmares or something, like I think that's a really cool application of this, is that you could maybe have that conversation. And so right now, I think Dash might have a different answer to this, because she can do Morse code. But right now, the reason the answers are short is because dreamers have to memorize the response code. So like, I don't know, right? Like we could say like, say yes, no 50 times or something. Like, I don't know if maybe they could do that, but like really what's limiting it is just people trying to remember all these different codes and stuff. And so that like Chris FL is a new idea where, you know, like if you have an iPhone, you can like swipe your answer. And so that is like something that he's working on that some of you might know about, where you move your eyes like as though you were typing on a keyboard, and then you can decode that. But I think that's still in preliminary stages. So, but the whole question of like how much information, how is your working memory in a dream? Maybe it's worse, and it's really interesting to test. I think there's, even if it was worse, I think that there's a lot of interesting things around that you could learn from. So.
Yeah, no, very cool. That's got to be one of the best applications of this kind of interactive dreaming. And I think like nightmares, even that got into the AASM guidelines around lucid dreaming being one of the solutions for that. So it's at least starting to go mainstream a bit more. Yeah, Karen, I don't know. I want to get to Dash pretty soon here too, and hopefully we can still have a good kind of like interplay with Karen and Dash, and like as Dash is talking through her Dream Phone project. But when you guys were doing this study, were you considering other types of stimulation other than light and sounds, or the tactile that I think it was the French group did the tactile? Were you thinking of other kind of like electrical stimulation or other types of things?
Right. So, so the lab that I'm in now specializes in sound during sleep. So actually, when we did our participants with the math problems, we didn't even use lights. We just used sounds to induce lucid dreams, because it's kind of like a lower risk situation. And I think some of the electrical stimulation, you know, like the 40 hertz thing to the forehead has kind of been like debunked a little bit. And so I think that there are probably other electrical stimulations that you could do. But the reason we did this one is because in one study it worked so well. We were like, let's just use this forever. And like, I think it worked really well in the first study, maybe not as well in subsequent studies. But yeah, electrical stimulation is just kind of like a different topic, but it would be cool to do that too, or somebody else do that.
Yeah, and any just kind of like general tips as you worked through this for people that are developing their own lucid dreaming devices, whether they're on the call or elsewhere, like any kind of like lessons learned that you would kind of pass along to them? Yeah.
Well, I guess just one note about the electrical stimulation that is a little bit iffy is that like the EEG correlates of lucid dreaming are very unclear. Like they're not replicated from study to study, like what brainwaves even relate to lucid dreaming. And I think there might be different types of lucid dreaming. And so I think that's another thing that kind of held us back from electrical stimulation, is that it's not even really clear what kind of stimulation you would need.
Do you have any best indications that you see on EEG or otherwise when people are lucid?
What I use is the eye movement signals, or we started doing sniffing signals. So I think that sniffing signals are way better. I think that sometimes eye movement signals wake people up or they mess up the dream imagery. So we've been doing sniffing. And
what's the sniffing?
So we use a nasal cannula. We just started and we haven't published anything on it yet. So nobody published anything on it yet before me. And so we put a nasal cannula in their nose, and then like breathing, I think, has been done before, but not specifically sniffing. And so it's an extremely clear signal. You can just see it on the EEG. And like when they're in REM sleep, they're just breathing in and out. And then if you just go, it looks like super spiky, or just, and so we're using that now, because also then you could maybe do more experiments with visual stimuli.
That's really cool. But there's no, those are all conscious, intentional things. Right. Or there's nothing on EEG that you would say this might be an indication.
So my synopsis of the literature is that there's two different ideas about that. So some people, like Ursula Voss and the 40 hertz stimulation, think that lucid dreaming is a combined state between wake and REM sleep, and there's more wake-like brain activity. There's one study that there's more alpha, which is from wake. There's that finding that there's more gamma, which some other studies haven't replicated. There's some studies that there's less slow waves, which is another indication that is more like wake. And so that's one hypothesis, is between REM sleep and wake. But there's another hypothesis that I think is favored by Stephen LaBerge, which is that it is a particularly deep state of REM sleep. And so it's kind of weird because deep REM sleep is more activated, and activated is kind of like wake anyway. But like he finds that people have, it's just a normal state of like particularly deep REM sleep that everybody goes into. And if you have the right mental set, then you have a lucid dream. And so my reconciliation of these two hypotheses is that there's probably different types of lucid dreaming. I think Stephen studied people that became lucid on their own. And so they were in deep phasic REM sleep, and they gave the eye signal in deep phasic REM sleep, and they had nice, stable lucid dreams. And I think that some lucid dreams induced by sensory stimulation might be a different type, where the brain is woken up slightly or something. And that, so, and then I've also seen people in lucid dreams that are like really awake and they report being in a lucid dream and stuff. So I think that there's a lot of different physiology that could underlie the experience of lucid dreaming. I don't think it's just one unified thing.
That's interesting, Karen. You know, we've all been watching this I-band device out of Northern Europe that supposedly uses some type of EEG monitoring to detect the dream state and then send the triggers. Now, I haven't seen any reviews on it, but according to what you said, in your study, that wasn't even an issue. You just started flashing the lights randomly. You weren't watching. You just assumed they were in REM state, correct?
No, we were watching. And so, yeah, I was, you know, you have to wake up really early and watch the EEG. So it's easy to tell when somebody's in REM sleep. That's pretty, like, is pretty objective, and a lot of sleep researchers would know how to identify that. What's difficult is trying to tell if somebody's in a lucid dream if they don't signal. But we waited till REM sleep to trigger it, and that makes sense that they could detect REM sleep and then send a trigger.
I get it, but I'm just looking for a way to indicate the dream state itself, and then use that as a trigger to launch whatever stimulus that may work. Thank you. That's fascinating.
And it seems like, if nothing else, like being able to indicate when somebody's in a lucid dream, you're able to label the data as far as like, this is, you know, a lucid dream versus a regular REM sleep stage. And like, maybe that's the first step to then, you know, build these models with all the different sensor streams.
Yeah. And there are some studies of that. So I think that they maybe need to be aggregated or something. But yeah, that's the issue, is that when you do that, they all come out slightly differently. So
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And yeah, want to get over to Dash, but maybe like last question for Karen. And again, Karen, feel free to stay and like interact in the next session too. And maybe this can just be like my kind of stock question, but what do you think? How do you think the world changes if suddenly like lucid dreaming becomes on demand, as far as like if there's a device or a supplement that like anybody takes it and they're able to become lucid any night? Like how do you think the world will change?
Well, I think that it depends on, you know, I guess, you know, if actually the whole thing about remotely communicating with consciousness worked out scientifically and you could prove that with lucid dreaming, I think that would be really amazing. That would be a change. But I don't, like, if that application actually worked because people could have more lucid dreams, then I think that would change our understanding of everything quite a bit. But it'll be interesting to see if that does turn out, or maybe if there's some other conditions that need to be met also. But yeah, I mean, my favorite application is just learning about yourself. So I think more people could do that. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And you know, kind of tangential there. If you haven't read any of Robert Wagner's books, those are worth the read, as far as like how to interact with your own mind, as far as like how do you talk to dream figures, or how do you talk to the kind of awareness behind the dream. So definitely recommend those, like when people become lucid, to scope out that. He's got a lot of like good ideas on how you can kind of interact there. So yeah, want to pop over to Dash here. I have there's not really any slides here, so yeah, feel free to give us the tour, Dash, on what your project is with the Dream Phone, and you know, kind of like how it detects REM, how you induce dreams, and like what your intention is for communicating out of lucid dreams.
Okay, yeah. So just I don't know if there's some people who haven't heard of what I'm doing yet, but also just the Dream Phone. I was inspired when I first started lucid dreaming by the stories of Stephen LaBerge and Keith Hearn, when they first did those studies to signal that lucid dreaming was real, and the the lucid dreamers sent the signals to say they're in the lucid dream. And so I always thought, like, can we extend that? Can we like have longer discussions and longer communications from a lucid dream? So I started working on this project probably in 2012, and the goal was just to like try to figure out how to send Morse code from a dream. And it's taken like a few different forms, but the first form that I actually tested was in 2018. After there were like several kits options at that point. When I started, I had to do everything, like put the components together by hand, and I was a newbie and didn't really know what I was doing, trying to like put everything on the breadboard, and I broke several things. And so then I found this kit, Backyard Brains. They do, they're like a little biosensing kit you can plug right on top of an Arduino. So I found them, and they made the whole thing a lot easier. And I didn't have any induction in this device. It was just communication. And yeah, I'll show some of it, because the form that it's in now was similar to what it was at, oh, I have to take this out though. There. Can you still hear me?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So, okay, so it's, here I'm doing a demo. Yeah, so you just have these electrodes on your eyes, and one for ground, connect the whole thing, and blah, blah, blah. So the first one was just this part. It was just the communication. And so I would take it every night for like a month, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna get lucid on my own and send a message from the dream. And I did it a few times. I sent hi, but it was like I would have so many issues. Like when you're first testing anything, whether it's software or hardware, or I'm sure like Karen in her study like ran into a lot of issues. Like the first times you're testing it, it's like you sometimes don't have any data. So for me, like I would accidentally toggle the Morse code interpretation off. There's an I signal to turn on and off. So I would accidentally toggle it off before sending the signal, and so stuff like that would happen. And so I thought, okay, I can't just get lucid randomly and use this device. I have to like add some induction, because it's not gonna work. I either have to get better at lucid dreaming or add induction. So I put it aside, and then somebody connected me with Karen, and I participated in her study, and the setup that they had at Northwestern inspired me to get back to this. And I sort of copied a lot of what was in the lab. I really liked how the induction worked there. So I have this LED here that helps with induction. It's pretty much like just a copy of what Karen was doing. Like there was just an LED strip on the wall. So yeah, so now we have induction. So there's 4 parts to the machine now. There's just like the first state is just wait for the dreamer to go to sleep. The second state is once REM is or the second state is detect REM. So the machine goes off first. The machine is just waiting for it to see eye movement. And then the third state is once the machine detects REM, it's gonna then induce lucidity. Yeah, so it's gonna start flashing lights. And then once the lucid dreamer sends a lucid signal, then we go into the state 4, which is interpret Morse code. And the way that it's set up now is it's set up just to here's the electric.
Yeah, the Girl Scout cookie box.
Components. Okay, so it's just set up to save a message to this SD card, but it can be set up in all sorts of ways. And I have a video of me sending a text message, but that was while I was awake, and I haven't successfully sent any messages while asleep. But I have a combination of testing this while asleep, trying to send a message, not totally getting, you know, the data, sending a message while I'm awake. So there's lots of parts, and it's just waiting for the time for it to all come together. And eventually I'd like to connect into the Twitter API and send a tweet, a live tweet from Lucid Dream. So
yeah, I like that
that's
goal.
it.
And you're so those are EOG sensors next to your eyes there, right?
Yeah, these
And
are EOG.
and then
And
like you have to be wired up to the Girl Scout cookie box there with actual like physical wires, right?
yeah, and it's not too bad. I find it a lot more comfortable than any of the masks I've used.
Yeah.
Even like when I had like this, whatever, how many electrode channels were on my head when Karen did the study, like that was more comfortable for me than the masks that I've worn. But yeah, just goes here and then I'm limited, but it's not too bad. So yeah.
Nice. And that LED strip, that's you're using red LEDs for that, just above the bed, right? Kind of attached to this cardboard platform.
Yeah, and maybe I can zoom out to show a little better, like what the whole contraption looks like. Here, yeah. So, yeah, the LED whole thing actually disconnected and fell on me while I was sleeping last night, but that was okay. So, what?
I just said occupational hazards.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's all sorts of things that can happen. I was like, when I first did this, huh?
You got attacked by your lucid dreams.
Yeah. when I first did this, when I first set it up, I was gonna be connected to AC, so the AC meaning instead of direct current, alternating current, which is plugging right into the wall. But like that led to all sorts of problems, but like it could have led to like a big problem because it's like kind of dangerous to sleep with like a device connected to your head.
You want to be super careful about that. And I used to make exhibits at the Exploratorium, and I just doing a simple GSR exhibit, the hoops we had to jump through to make sure it was isolated. If there's a lightning strike, particularly in Chicago, you would want to, be careful.
Yeah. So so it's not as hazardous as it was for a little bit, but now just cardboard falling on me while I'm sleeping. Yeah.
It'd be a pretty fun way to induce a lucid dream. Like if you had something fall from the sky and then, that's weird, I must be lucid. Like a counterintuitive way to use that kind of stimulation.
So you detect the REM from the EOG signal that you're getting, and then that's then when you trigger, that's what triggers the lights?
Yeah, and it's a little limited, like, because you could just be awake and moving your eyes, and that's what happened the first night one of the first nights that I was testing this iteration, and like it would be a lot more accurate if I had an EMG on the chin, and I learned that just from Karen and from being in the lab, and they had an EMG on the chin, so it just like detects muscle tone, and if there's no muscle tone and your eyes are moving, then that's an indication that you're dreaming and not just awake moving your eyes. So right now there's just like it has to wait for a few hours, and then hopefully I'm not like awake 5 hours into the dream moving my eyes, so it's a little limited, but if I added that channel, that could be more accurate.
Did you write the sort of code or algorithm for figuring out if you're in REM?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it's just looking for a certain amount of eye movements for
a big enough amplitude. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's not. So I mean, I haven't tested yet that actually works, but I'm hoping that that's whatever I guessed worked well.
Oh, cool.
What are some of the things you're troubleshooting right now? And then maybe some people on the call can help you troubleshoot it. Are there any like big barriers right now you're trying to work around?
Yeah, there's like the barrier I ran into is just like power, which it was an issue before. But before it was because AC was giving me electrical noise, but now it's battery powered to both be safer and not give electrical noise. But I'm using a 9-volt battery, and that's not enough because the whole for those of you who know your like current and volts and stuff like that, it's just without the LEDs going off, the machine draws 100 milliamps. So, and that's only gonna a 9-volt battery will last 5 hours with that. So I need like some sort of rechargeable around between 7 to 12 volts is what I heard works with Arduino, battery that has like at least 1200, maybe at least 900 milliamp hours. So that's
huh? I just use USB power, 5.5 volts. It's a clean power source. It works great with my Dreamcatcher. And I'd like to say that what I have here is basically a head-mounted apparatus that you just described. And trust me, Dashiell and I have talked about the power supply and thus in the past. And I'm excited about collaborating with your code, with the iSensor code. And I don't want to hog the meeting, but if I could present real quick, I mean, it's amazingly easy.
Go for it.
Okay, here we are. Are we sharing? Here we are. Okay, can you see my screen? Okay. Now I simply plugged the Arduino in to the COM port, and this is the program that you get. It's all open source. Now the value of my code was this algorithm that does what Dashiell just described. It senses the eye motion triggers, but well, I haven't done the SMS piggyback thing. Arduino makes it pretty easy. And here, this is a real-time display of information that's coming right out of the Arduino to a COM port. It's giving me the thresholds of some of the systems. Now, I'm only using 26% of the Arduino processing power. So there's a lot of room for expansion. And Sheila and I are excited about collaborating on this effort, and we'd like to welcome any one of you that might consider collaborating with us. So there it is.
Yeah, and I think that's again like a big value of this group is connecting people that want to collaborate in this kind of projects. And again, we'll post this on YouTube, so anybody that's listening there that wants to reach out, I'm happy to help connect people that want to work together on this.
Yeah, when Brian, when you were talking about how there's been all these failed Kickstarters, Carissa, who's here but did not get to introduce herself because something was wrong with her mic, we were talking a few days ago or maybe a week ago, but about how like a lot of those Kickstarters, it's not like there are people in the Lucid Dream community who are, I don't know, just like they're not super active in the Lucid Dream community. They tend to just be like random people that sort of disappear. And if there was a group that came up with a technology to induce lucid dreaming that had more of like a stake in the community, that might be more trusted, and it might be if it was also just like collaboration between people, it might be just better. People who really want something to work.
Yeah, I think they've done a lot of damage, especially the first one that really kind of started all of it, or the renaissance of lucid dreaming technology, which was the REMI. And those guys moved on to just build a little light stick, and they stopped responding to emails for support if you needed a copy of the instructions. And it's still being sold, and yet you can't reach out. Like I've reached on every channel, and not only was it a step back because it didn't have eye movement detection, even though it was more comfortable and slightly more programmable, they didn't seem to actually care that much about lucid dreaming or the technology, and kind of like took the money and disappeared, and that's about it. So I'm hoping with more collaborations, like you say, within the community, to find better tools, better tech, and to rebuild the trust in these endeavors, because they're important.
Yeah, totally agree. And like that kind of echoes Dash's point there too, where it's like they kind of came outside of the community, and like with that, you don't really have as much empathy for what kind of problems are you trying to solve for people that want to become lucid in a dream. And I think it's critical to like, you got to really understand kind of the ins and outs and like what they want to get done by using these devices. And I think it can even go beyond, lucid dream induction too. Like maybe it's also around like help improve sleep overall too. Like maybe that's a way to get more people to try it, where if you also have a stimulation modality that can improve deep sleep at the same time, and track your sleep in a reliable way, there could be this extra kind of additional features that make it more enticing to use, but then also help kind of augment the lucid dreaming capability of it. So yeah, a lot of room for improvement there, and I think it's only going to get better with like more people embedded in the lucid dreaming community coming up with solutions to do that.
Yeah, I have my project open source. I think, Joseph, did you say that yours is open source too?
Ooh, now let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
Well, let's take that offline. Thank you.
Okay, I thought you mentioned that it was or something. Okay, no, right.
Well, no,
I
as I discussed, the code really isn't much use without the apparatus. So I'm looking into a way to allow an editable version to be released with each device. But as far as spreading it wide, I don't know. We can talk about that, perhaps.
Yeah.
I'm leaning in that direction. So
yeah, so mine is all online. It's like, I mean, everything's still in a sort of unfinished state. I'm like, but I'm keeping mine open source right now because if someone wants to come and iterate on what I'm doing,
I understand.
that's more, like.
Okay. All right then. Yeah. That's all the convincing I need. I'll add.
Oh.
We'll combine our code and boom, we'll launch it out there, and we'll rake in the karma points. And I've got some interesting ideas about the mask. I'm considering a flexible silicone mask into which we can put the side sensors, the skin sensors. Now, I saw you sent me the specs on that kit. I need to talk to you about the signal conditioning into the Arduino, but yeah, I'm really excited to delve into this with you. So
I'm not trying to make you make your thing open source if you don't want. I was just saying what was why I decided to make mine.
I had a Kickstarter. I was willing to do 100 of them for $100. I'm glad it didn't kick off because each one takes me like 4 hours to make, and I have a regular job, So I'm looking into ways to offer, the equipment and the apparatus at a very cheap scale. Shoot, those Arduinos are like $5 or $10 each, right? And so that's my whole object, to keep the cost low. And like I said, I'm really excited to delve into it. I have already a secret Facebook group set up that if any one of you from this meeting sends me an invite, I'll introduce you. Kristen Lamarco's in there. Everybody who I gave a kit at the Hawaii retreat is in that group. Now, every one of them promised to build the Dreamcatcher. So far, one lawyer, Dimitri Tobin in Australia, was the only one that actually got some lights blinking. But we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna. Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about the Dream Phone project and like kind of next steps that you have?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to talk about just that. So the idea with doing the Dream Phone was just really to get people more interested in lucid dreaming, and if I can send a tweet from a dream, like that's interesting. Some people will talk about it. People will be like, oh, how can I do that? Or they'll just like, it's something to bring into the world physically to bring more attention to lucid dreaming. And my goal is just to get people more interested in it. And so this is one of the reasons I have it open source, is just because I want people to like do all sorts of strange things with it. And I don't if you guys know David Green. He's like a lucid dream. He makes drawings from lucid dreams, and so like I've always thought like, oh, what would an artist do with it? So we've been talking about doing some weird art stuff with it. You know, like, can he get like a robot to like move while he's in the dream as some sort of art installation, like communicating to robotics and all sorts of stuff. And I just think that's really cool and expanding on what you can do if you bridge that gap between the dream world and the waking world. And yeah, so that's why I decided to make it open source. I also don't like, I don't know, I mean, it sounds cool to like produce something and sell it, but like, I don't know what, like that's not my interest right now, because I'm not sure what the market is like for something like that with lucid dreaming. And it also seems like one of those things that's like, there's like a lot of liability in this and that. So I just want to do it for the, like, for now, I just want to do it like to get more of the word out about lucid dreaming.
And I think the way that you're doing is pretty smart too. Like I can imagine a lot of outlets picking up woman tweets from a lucid dream and like how much awareness that's going to build. And then when people are more aware of it, it's going to draw more people into the space. And that's only going to help build more momentum and people with the right skills to like build that, you know, those products that will actually, you know, have some commercial success because they're good products. So I think like, you know, you're kind of helping us with that first phase of like raising awareness in a kind of a clever way.
Now it's trying to steer clear of the woo-woo stuff. Dash, it's an incredible tool to get input from people in that altered state of consciousness. Even if our device is just available for research purposes, to have a reliable test device like that is available would just go miles and miles. So yes, we'll talk about that. Yeah, I would really appreciate input from anybody who cares to voice a concern.
Yeah, sounds good. And so Dash, do you have any estimated timelines and when you think you'll be able to do it, or is it just kind of like wait and see as you kind of like work through issues as they arise?
Yeah, if I give you an estimate, it's like, it's always going to be optimistically like way too soon because I started this in 2012. And I can't tell you how many times I was like, I'm about to do it. And like, it was so wrong. So, which is just like how everything goes. So, at least for me, you know, but it's going to happen. It is going to happen. So, yeah, I think it's going to happen soon, but I don't know, you know, like I'm probably going to run into a lot more problems than I expect, which is always happens.
Yeah, no, I bet you'll get it. Things you're describing are, you know, it's not science fiction. It's all like pretty feasible. Not to mean that it's easy, but it's all stuff that it's possible. Like it just got, like everything's got to like line up and just got to work through those issues. So I'm excited to see that, you know, come to fruition. Any other questions for Dash on this project or any other thoughts?
Dash, just to give you a term on using electrodes, if you look up something called optical isolation, that's the key. You know, if you have something plugged in, just Google optical isolation with medical devices, and if you're working off of batteries though, like you're doing it, you're safe.
Yeah. I don't know at what point, like, because when I started this, everyone was like, yeah, you can't do it off of AC. But then at some point,
but you really are exposing yourself to, small as it might be, there is a definite risk there, you know.
Yeah, so it's better. So it was interfering with the signals too much. Like if you looked at the even when just something nearby plugged into AC, the electrodes will pick that up. So I had to like move all this like electrical stuff. This lamp that's on right now, I have to unplug it at night. I had to move power strip to the other side because the signal goes from like a nice line that's got an up and down to this fat like snaky thing.
Something else you could do, I mean, this might get a little bit pricey, but you know, we've been having all of these crazy power outages up in the Bay Area because of fires. And I actually just sent, they make these batteries that have quite a bit of oomph to them, that are either probably you wouldn't have any of that problem. That is you can plug, like 110 volts into. They sell them at Best Buy, things like that. That I'm sure would run this thing for a night easily without it ever having to be plugged into the wall.
Oh, like a little, okay, like a car battery type thing almost?
Yeah. While you guys go, I'll see if I can find the name of it. I'll tell you.
Yeah. But, Joe, you were saying that you used
Yes, there are
USB?
there are USB lights available. I've got one that I use when I work on my computer. You can plug it right in, 5.5 volts. It provides pretty much amperage to run like an LED, but perhaps Bill's suggestion would work best for you. I have a question for you now. So do you find that your headboard or roof mounted LEDs, is there an advantage to that over the lights in a mask?
Well, so I've had masks that induced lucid dreams with light. And then I've had this type of setup induce lucid dreams when I was with in Karen's lab. And the biggest difference for me was just like comfort. And
so you have seen the lights come through and they're morphed into, you say, a police car sometimes. Okay,
yeah,
well that's all right. So that's really exciting. And now one more thing, I saw an item on the market that was actually a wristband that they claimed to detect dreams with a pulse rate or maybe some skin reaction friction resistance, and then it shocked you. Now, what kind of science is there on that, Karen?
Okay, I was actually going to say that, like, I saw that Kickstarter. I think it was like a vibration thing. And I thought it was really interesting because if you look at the, like, research on dream incorporation, tactile stuff is good at getting incorporated into dreams, like way better than, like, auditory stuff. There's not a lot of research on it, but I do think that there's something interesting about, like, tactile stuff and lucid dreaming, and I think that is a cool direction. And also the other thing I want to say is that, like, you're talking about the EMG, but like when you're in REM sleep, that's the only time that you have a paralyzed EMG. Like that never happens at any other time. So I feel like there should be something that is able to detect that, or like if you just need another way of detecting REM, like maybe you don't want stuff on your face. I feel like it'd be interesting to look at, like, when are you paralyzed and twitching? Because, like, that is very unusual in comparison to, like, every other state of.
Well, I mean, but you're onto something, right? I mean, it's my most effective practice is 4 a.m. boom, galantamine, and just think about it. And I'm usually in REM state, so I know I'm pretty much guaranteed to be dreaming at that point. So maybe we shouldn't really emphasize sensing it so much, but definitely the side mount sensors with to do the Morse code. Oh, and on that, Dash and I have been talking. I learned Morse code as a ham radio operator 50 years ago, okay? We worked out little short methods of code that incorporates messages where you don't have to do the whole thing. CQ, CQ, CQ is how you ring out and say, I'm here, somebody answer, I'm going to talk to somebody. So they're, and it's amazing that the Germans learned it letter by letter. I mean, only the Germans would go to such expertise and precision. Trust me. So we'll talk about that, Dash, and it's all capable with the Arduino that we're using right now. So I'm really excited about it.
And at least, like, my 2 cents on, like, sensing versus stimulation, it does feel like stimulation is kind of the missing piece of the puzzle here. Not that, like, sensing is trivial, but, like, even on some of these wrist-worn wearables or, like, ring wearables like the Oura Ring, we're not perfect by any means, but it's approaching, like, pretty good, or at least, like, probably good enough for this application, as long as you, like, you get in the ballpark and, like, you're willing to tolerate some kind of, like, hits and misses, and if the stimulation doesn't, like, immediately wake somebody up. So I feel like there's probably these trade-offs between, like, having a user-friendly consumer device and, wanting to minimize the amount of, like, electrodes attached to your face. It's like maybe we can do good enough from the finger, especially when you kind of layer in temperature data and maybe, like, EDA data and heart rate variability, and, like, the overlaying all of those, like, kind of signals that are you can't measure the brain from the finger, but you can measure a lot of the proxies from there too. So then I think it probably becomes more of like a trying to solve for the right stimulation, but open to other thoughts on that if like people think that's off base. But those are just like a few top of mind thoughts on that.
Well, I tend to be very empirical about these things. It's sort of like at the end of the day, if it's really working for people, hey, you know, I mean, that I think is the you know, you just, my experience is you got to test things with people. You know, you just gotta there's no, yeah, there's just, you got to test it with people.
Yeah, and I bet there's probably a whole personalization aspect of it where, you know, like REM might look a little bit different between people, or like, you know, different types of stimulation work better for different types of people. I don't know,
Right.
Karen, if you saw that in your research.
Yeah, I think that is one thing that like I don't have a lot of knowledge about this, but I think that that's one thing that can be hard for Kickstarters or for people, like, for instance, with the swipe, like if you have something that detects REM for you, it is like, that's one reason why sleep scoring algorithms like aren't automated yet and people still sit there and do the 30-second epochs, is because like there's just these weird individual differences, and like also with how the electrodes are attached. So like you can't just program something to say like, you know, chin EMG goes down 50% and scalp EMG does this. It's like not that clear. And so even if you get a device to work for you, it's like a whole other animal to try to make it work for other people, I think, which is, I think, an obstacle in the development of this stuff.
Yeah. And like, maybe that would necessitate in like a software solution to have some kind of like baseline period where you can kind of like train to that person over time.
Right. So the Zeo, no, and it's not my Zeo. It's, what's this thing called? It's got a what?
The ZMax.
The ZMax. The ZMax detects REM pretty well, to my knowledge, and they use like a phenotype model or something. So like you wear it for the beginning of the night or something, or one night, and then it looks at your sleep and all that stuff, and then it like creates a sleep phenotype that it applies to the next night or something. I forget exactly how it works, and that, like, I feel like that it is pretty good at cueing you in REM sleep. The only thing is that it sometimes falls off, and I also think that they are a little bit behind in terms of they can't produce as many as people want, and they're not answering all their emails and stuff. So the like company aspect has some stuff to be desired, but I think that the product is working like kind of well.
What are they actually monitoring?
Brainwaves. They're using.
Is that right?
Yeah. They do it, and I think it's just a few electrodes on your forehead, and you can kind of see eye movements, but they use sleep scoring differently. So you can look at the wave, and it can kind of look like the brain waves that you see in EEG.
Right, like you talked about that earlier with LeBerg's theory as far as what actual brain waves. We had that discussion at the table during in Hawaii, if I believe, with you. Yes. So that's very interesting. Now, if that could be an avenue for actually altering that signal and being able to detect that signal, that might be an avenue out as well. But I don't know. Just a thought.
They're not stimulating brainwaves. They're just looking at them same way as like any electrodes are looking at them. But then because of the phenotyping thing, I think that they're
I get it.
And then
I think it's 2 channels of EEG, and then they're sort of like doing a lot of signal processing, so they can, you know, they can get, I guess, some EOG out of that or filter other things out. They're doing a lot of stuff with like a little bit of, but pretty good, you know.
Right.
And critically, something that they're doing is they're not just looking at the EEG line, they're looking at the spectrogram of it. So like they're looking at the different frequencies.
I understand entirely. And, you know, I've been waiting for that to hit the market. It sounds like that's the most reliable way. But again, like if I follow my practice or one of these newfangled Brian O'Hearn wild techniques, right? And that's become real popular too. I'm pretty much guaranteed to already be in REM state. I'm not so concerned about detecting it anymore. I mean, you can put yourself in REM to be fairly certain that you're in REM state by following a few simple practices and procedures. But it's also very interesting. Now, anything that offers an additional avenue for getting information in or out, now that's definitely worth exploring. I'm just going to shut up. Thank you.
Good contributions, though, for sure. And I know we're kind of running up against time, but I'm willing to stay for longer than beyond the hour. But I do want to at least go through my last couple slides, which will take less than 3 minutes, I estimate, and then it's kind of like into open topics, which we've kind of been doing anyways. But I will share my screen again real quick just to kind of close out of the deck I have here.
And Dash, I put the link for that power supply I was talking about in the chat.
Thanks. Yeah, I opened it. Thank you.
Nice. So yeah, I want to quickly talk about mugwort. I don't know how many people are actually down to do experiments like this, but figure like let's try one and see what happens. I'll at least participate. So if nothing else, we got an N=1 study here. So yeah, mugwort. This gets into kind of the supplements. We've been talking a lot about devices tonight. But definitely a lot of room for exploration on supplements, whether it's galantamine or other supplements or combinations of supplements too, like having a certain stack that's complementary. But yeah, mugwort, it's related to wormwood. So they use that to make absinthe, kind of a fun fact there. Its effects are, vivid dreams, hypnagogia is enhanced. Some people report increased frequency of lucid dreaming. I haven't experienced that with mugwort, but I haven't experimented with it much. So look forward to trying this over the next month more. Different ways you can take it. You can take it in a tea, capsule form, tincture. Some people put dried leaves under their pillow, which is kind of interesting. Apparently the aroma of mugwort can somehow make dreams more vivid and might, lead to more lucid dreams. Seems a bit far-fetched, but I think worth a try. So if you want to participate, I think this is a good place to coordinate on the Facebook and Reddit groups. I'll at least get a thread started on each of those groups for Tech for Dreaming. And the idea is, try it in your preferred form factor. Like some people probably prefer tea over tincture over, other ways of ingesting it. And then, just try it at your, over the next 30 days. And then in the next meetup, or the next event, we'll talk about some of the results, or at least kind of just regroup on what happened. Disclaimer here, do your own research before ingesting anything like mugwort. I don't know if I actually need that disclaimer, but it can't hurt. And then here's just an outline of an example experiment. This is what I'm probably going to do, where I'll start by, putting a pouch under my pillow just for week 1, just to see if that does anything in isolation. Then I'm going to layer on a dose in the capsule form, starting by taking it before bed, and then I'm going to start taking it like about 4 hours after falling asleep, because you typically get more of your REM sleep in the second half of the night. Here's just a couple links on the type of form factors I'm planning to use. So that's the overview there. Again, we'll coordinate within the Facebook group and the Reddit group and have some threads. And definitely want to put this plug up here again too. If anybody wants to get more involved, send me an email. Definitely welcome any help. Connect on the social media sites we have here, and welcome any ideas for future events too. I want to have these at least once a month, and want to, span between devices and research and supplements, and so definitely welcome any ideas for future events too. So I'll end it there with this kind of trippy animation for open topics, and stop sharing the screen.
Now, Brian, I'm looking forward to participating on the mugwort thing, but I've learned to be very careful of dosage. So I've got this leafy stuff. I mean, what do you recommend? How powerful is this? What should I try to start out? Does anybody know?
I dropped a link on one that was rated well on Amazon, but I can't profess to be an expert on like the mugwort dosage.
Okay, well, I'll definitely look into it. But I did a quick Google search. It's some kind of strong hallucinogenic that's unclassified. I mean, and testable in many states. So, yeah, perhaps this is maybe more interesting than I'd planned.
It's it's available over the counter, and I think sometimes people say it has mild psychoactive effects. At least I haven't experienced any kind of like heavy hallucinogenic effects. I'd be open to that, but that hasn't been my experience. But yeah, I think it's experiment at your own risk, and I think we can kind of coordinate and experiment on these kind of groups, and talk about it in the next event, and see like what worked, what didn't work, and
Well, Sasha
getting that
Soljan always says the minimum effective dose, and that's
Yeah.
for a reason, right?
Yeah.
There's real quick. There in my previous searches, somebody sent me a link to something that's very similar to Zmax. That's basically like a you know, kind of mostly for clinics, but or for research, EEG headband, you know, for home use. That was $500 for the device, and I do think they offered, you know, kind of remote analysis. And I have scoured my emails, my DMs, my browsing history, and I cannot, for the life of me, find anything remotely like this. That you know rings a bell. It was like, oh, it was that device. Does anybody know any other thing similar to the Zmax? That might be it.
Look, I have to say the cost of the parts of the device we're talking about are like, I'd be embarrassed to even say it.
Yeah.
It's available right now. I've got dream catchers, and they're only going to get better and better as we incorporate more features.
I am specifically looking for something like really medical grade, but that again, like you're saying, the components are so affordable that it shouldn't be like $4,000, right? And the device that I saw was like 500, and I don't know why I just can't find that particular company anymore. But
I think it was called. It may have been called New Rune.
That sounds familiar to me too. That's what I was thinking.
They've transitioned, I think, out of the consumer market now, and they're actually targeting sort of more researchers. But it's in many ways, I think, kind of similar to the Zmax, in that it's a pretty good, you know, like a lot of the things on the market are kind of toys. And I would say that you know, no offense to any of the manufacturers, but I think that the Zmax and the New Rune probably are in a different category where they really are.
How do you spell that?
That's the one you're thinking of.
How do you spell that?
Neuroon, but they may have renamed it recently.
It used to be.
Oh no, that's a mask, right?
It is a mask, but it's
not what I'm
sensing mask.
Yeah, I know it's not the one I'm thinking of, but I know that one. Thanks.
Yeah, I shared in the chat. I got this spreadsheet where it is kind of tracked devices and supplements. I was just scanning that on my other monitor. I couldn't really see anything that fit that profile. It looks like Neuron is $200 roughly, according to like the column I have there. There's Lucid Catcher with $350 back in the day. So at least like that seems to be the most expensive one I have in my kind of draft spreadsheet here.
I'll just add, from decades of working with these masks, the actual practice of recognizing the lights and that triggering a dream is equally comparable to actually doing reality checks. In all honesty, that's what you're up against with the lights flashing. So like the skin, the poking of the wrist, these are what I'm considering looking into. Thank you.
In terms of headband brainwave stuff, there's also the Muse. I don't know if any of you have explored with that, but it seems like they're developing something in particular connected to tracking sleep brainwaves.
Yeah, the new one, right? The Muse S is for sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like just more comfortable fabric designed to sleep in it, and it'll be interesting to see whether it's Muse or there's the Dream headbands, DREEM. It'll be interesting to see how open source they get as far as opening up their APIs and then enabling people to build applications like lucid dreaming applications on top of their hardware, kind of like a Nintendo Wii back in the day, or I'm thinking of Xbox. Like people were doing all kinds of like development on like that kind of consumer hardware. Like maybe there's a similar ecosystem that'll develop in, you know, like some of these consumer devices that are more like focused on sleep and meditation, but then could be, you know, kind of like developed onto. We'll see.
Yes, I think that's what Dash is doing too. Like you're using like, and there's the Arduino, there's the kits that are out there to do sensing, you know, so a lot of the pieces are kind of out there now.
Yeah, unfortunately, one of the main pieces that I used was discontinued, and they had like, I contacted it's Backyard Brains, and I contacted them recently and like was like, oh, could you reproduce it? Like, because I had some people who also wanted to make this, and they said they couldn't, but they were like, you can kind of hack it with some of the other stuff they have, but it seemed like not like a great thing. Like, you basically had to solder a ton of stuff together, whereas they had this like, and then he was going to send me extra parts to turn it into this part that they had. And it was like, that doesn't seem very feasible for most people. I would have to like kind of brush up on soldering, and if I have to do it, like most people who have no experience with this stuff aren't going to solder. So I was thinking of kind of looking into, Robert mentioned Open BCI, and they're more expensive, but they're more cost effective if you look at like cost per electrode channel. So you'd be able to, with OpenBCI, it would be cool because you'd be able to add that like EMG channel and some more channels that might make it more accurate or give us more data. That, like, if we had a bunch of people collecting all this data every night, it could give you, you could run that through some neural network and get some information about lucid dreaming and some of the stuff we were talking about earlier. Like, are there things that we can't detect that are actually happening with lucid dreaming that AI could kind of pick up?
Well, so I'm in sort of agreement. I'm sure Karen would probably agree too. I mean, I think if you can get a large enough sampling of people, that are actually accessing these states, then you're going to be able to start to get some generalizable information. I mean, you can use small amounts of people in the beginning to work out the kinks to get a device functional. But yeah, when you start really tuning like how useful that information is, if you actually start having 100 people that, on some kind of a regular basis, or 1,000 people that are feeding data into something, you're going to have a very different landscape that you can start to research in.
I've reached out to them and practically begged them to make a version that is not so big and hexagonal.
Are you talking about OpenBCI?
OpenBCI. Do they have a new one? Oh, that's good news. Do they have the OpenBCI is basically like a big hexagon that is not comfortable to mount on a headband on your head or something. So, unfortunately, they haven't made one that would be more fitting for sleep. But maybe one day they will. So.
Yeah, well, like I would set it up just like I have it set up now, which like works for me, where the components are not on my head, and which is how they do it and how Karen did it in the lab. And it's not like ideal for consumers, but it is like, for me, it's just like so much more comfortable to sleep that way with like, I'd much rather have flexible electrodes all over my head.
It's so funny because, I'm like you, like a mask, I can't sleep with a mask. It's just like, it's too much. But wires coming off of my head into the side of the bed, that was my first prototype. And I toss so often that it was just not, it's very uncomfortable, and I had to put it on me somehow. So there's always like these tricky setups and solutions that we all have to customize. Yeah.
Yeah, I can speak from experience. You can get used to those wires.
I also have like a trick, maybe not everybody could do this, but I put all the wires into my ponytail, and that's been working nicely for me, because like it's like you're not really feeling them. But yeah, if you don't have a ponytail, you're gonna have some limitations.
Yeah, with my COVID hair, I'm approaching ponytail status here.
Oh yeah.
It's definitely the longest I've had it before. But I think things like wires attached to your bedside, I think like that works well for when you're in kind of the prototyping phase. But then naturally you'd want to transition over to like Bluetooth or some other kind of wireless connectivity to a mobile device or something like that over time. But totally works for prototype stage.
Exactly. I think that Jay, like one of the things I've seen when I just look at these things that are on Kickstarter is like, it feels to me like people have jumped to the product without actually having gone through a proper prototyping, stage. So
yeah,
I think it's helpful to kind of think about it in two stages. So you want to do some prototyping, you know, and it doesn't have to be with that many people, you know, and not worry too much about the affordances, you know, beyond just like not disturbing the person a lot so you wake them up. And then once you've got something that is actually proving itself, you know, with a, you know, with a, you know, just a small number of people, then you can start to look at, you know, how you shrink it down.
And I suspect that's why both me and Dash, like, she's since 2012 and I'm since 2014 working on this, and you've not seen us on Kickstarter yet, because I agree completely. Like, I want to iterate, make something that works really well for a, you know, at least a fair amount of people before I go out and ask anybody for money or say that I've made a thing that works. You know, I don't. That's, again, goes back to the keeping trust and providing something that is legit, and I think that's important. So I agree completely.
The whole trick is keeping the device where it needs to be. With the infrared sensors over the eyeballs, that can be challenging if it shifts very much. But the lights are a little bit more forgiving than that. I'm thinking about the skin sensors with some of that gel in a tight-fitting silicone type headband that even looks a little bit like a dream catcher. That's the way I'm going to design my next one.
With the prototyping and stuff, like, yeah, it does seem like a lot of these companies, like, I almost feel like they're not really like lucid dreamers, or they're not really using it or something, because like, right, like, it just, like, they just disappear. And a lot of the stuff I'm doing is not even like, I'm not even plugging into the dream phone some nights, but I'm still sleeping connected to it just to get used to what it, like, how my behavior is when I sleep with it. And like, that stuff you have to explore too, which is like, you figure out, like, I figured out from that I want the wires in my ponytail or whatever, you know. There's like so much more than just like getting the mask to do something, but it's like, how do you interact with it as someone who's sleeping, and you know, and hopefully like the mask parts aren't falling on you while you sleep and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, it's like, I've heard that called dog fooding before, where you kind of have to like try your own solution, or, you know, like ethnography, where you're kind of like in the shoes of like the person using it, which in this case, literally, it's you if you're developing it for yourself. But yeah, I think that's a great way to, you know, make sure you're kind of on track in what you develop, to make sure it's user friendly, and like, either you're gonna notice some stuff that you weren't, you know, anticipating until you actually like use it day in and day out. So I think that's a good way to do it. So we're coming up on 2 hours and 15 minutes here. Great discussion, and, you know, really liked the interaction between people. I know Karen just had to hop off. I'm willing to stay on for, you know, like a bit longer too, if people, you know, want to continue chatting, but just want to mention.
I've got a good one, Brian. You know, I think Carissa fell for this too. Some Polish dude hits the internet with an $80 smart Lucider, right? And he says it's got infrared dream detection and all this. Look, it's not true. It was a scam. And I'm thinking, and so nobody can get hold of the guy anymore. I fell for it just because it's a write-off for my business, right? But
yeah.
So that's what's going on in the market now. There's such a flood of interest now that people are taking advantage of that, of scamming people with it.
Yeah, I think that's just going to continue too, especially when you got people like they're going to be tweeting from lucid dreams, stirring up all kinds of.
I've been looking for it. I've got the thing somewhere. I don't know what I did with it, but it's basically a piece of garbage. And yeah, now I can pride myself on saying that my Dreamcatcher is like some Tangerine Dream keyboard equipment. You can throw it out the window out of the apartment building and it'll hit the ground and still work. Yeah, I pride myself on that with this design concept that I'm pursuing. And Jay Mutsafi, I found what you're saying very interesting. Also, the vocal feedback out of the dream. That's really neat stuff. I definitely want to talk to you, and as well as all of you. Thank you.
I put my info in the chat a little while back, but yeah, always happy to chat. And one of the other things I wanted to kind of bring to this group, and I'm glad, you know, Karen was speaking as well. And I think what I would love to see more is incorporating people on the neuroscience side into this, tech for dreaming, increasingly so. I come across, and maybe this is just the circles I'm in, people on the technical side, which is fantastic. But I do think we need to keep up with the scientific research on the neuroscience side, and people who are interested in collaborating and exploring the technical side and work together on this.
Yeah, totally valid point. I think like these kind of solutions, they need cross-discipline collaboration as far as like people in neuroscience, people in biochemistry, if we're talking about supplements, people in software, hardware. That's part of the reason it's difficult to do, because you can't, it's difficult for one person to do everything. So I think that's, going to be a lot of the value of a community like this, is to bring people together with those different skill sets that fit together in the right way. So yeah, let's try to get more neuroscience people in the loop here too. And yeah, even if it's tangentially related to lucid dreaming, like I think that's, that's fair game if there's, clear applications of neuroscience research that could like venture into lucid dreaming in the future.
Anything that improves sleep is a good start too. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. That's what I was kind of mentioning, like even if you improve deep sleep in this kind of device, then if you're able to augment deep sleep early in the night, that opens up more time to have REM sleep later in the night too. So there's all kinds of complementary things, and it's going to entice people to use the device too that haven't even heard of lucid dreaming. It's kind of like this Trojan horse thing where like if you tell somebody like I'm going to help improve your sleep and track your sleep, but then there's this add-on feature of lucid dreaming, they'll discover this thing they didn't know they wanted until they actually like start using it too. At least in this kind of early phase when it's kind of a lack of awareness around it.
A friend of mine uses this phrase, and trust me, I've wasted a lot of time. Don't cast pearls in front of swine. If you can relate with what I just said, it might save you some aggravation.
Yeah, I like that one. I'm gonna have to jot that one down. What was that? Just Jojo curiosity. You had the 3D model of a woman with a helmet thing at one point. What was that one?
Well, I just started my design. You guys seeing it? Hold on.
You were sharing it before. I didn't know.
There it is.
Now, though.
Yeah, this is Inventor.
Oh, here it comes. Okay.
Okay.
So it's like a kind of
Autodesk Inventor, and I just pulled this together like earlier today. I'm getting serious. I've been traveling. I'm a mechanical engineer with a European company called Swisslog. We're putting in robotic grocery stores all throughout Texas right now, and I'm thanking Swisslog for allowing me to do a little bit of government work on their 3D package here. But yes, it's pretty easy to model this stuff. I mean, boom, we'll open up the mask, and then you can edit features like boom. Well, this is called Inventor. It's an Autodesk product, but all the 3D modeling stuff is basically all the same. Here's how easy it is. You do a new sketch. We'll just put a cut right through the middle of it. Okay. Now we'll go to extrude. Okay. Well, that's generally how it works.
And this is kind of stuff where people can export these 3D models and actually 3D print stuff too, right? So we were talking about prototypes before. Like that actually gets a lot easier nowadays, right, with 3D printing.
Oh, you see how I just put that cut in there, right? Yeah. So I'll be working on my new silicone mask. Yes, rapid prototyping will allow me to take this 3D model right to a mold manufacturer that'll make my mask out of silicone for probably pennies a piece. I'm not kidding you. So I'm really excited about this part of it.
Cool.
And so I could use your guys' help on how to design it. Now, I heard what you said about the electronics not being mounted on the mask itself. Now, currently, I have an umbilical cord that goes from my mask to this little, where is it? Here it is. this little module. Can you guys see it? Am I still presenting?
Yeah, if you could stop presenting, we'll be able to see it better.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No worries.
So right now, this is a fairly powerful computer that's in this box. It's called an Arduino microprocessor. Shield's been programming them. They're fairly easy to learn. Look, I'm a mechanical guy, but I know a little bit about electronics. All the code that you could possibly ever need is available on the internet. You cut and paste it together. Kids in high school are doing amazing Halloween lighting displays and stuff with this. These are cheap, $5 on sale. I'm not kidding. But I mean, all the other mask manufacturers have their own dedicated burn chips, right? That is probably about the same cost, maybe a little savings there. But I mean, this gives you the flexibility to reprogram it and change all the parameters in it fairly easily. I had the compiler program up earlier. So writing code is really fun stuff, guys. You know, you get in it, you make a little change, you test it, and each little change is like a first-person shooter video game. It gives you a little endorphin rush as you're programming it. I love it. And I'm facing doing some code changes. Right now, I've got the infrared device that's mounted right there over your pupil that I programmed to sense. Now, I sat up all night in Hawaii trying to get the thing to work, dealing with the high humidity. It's a control feature called hysteresis. And so what I ended up doing was putting a small little gain knob, an adjustment, an overall sensitivity adjustment on this device. But like I said, I'm not really going to be worried about the sensing part of it so much anymore, right? I mean, that's what you guys are all talking about, ways to sense it. And this works. The infrared works. It's tried and true. Now, the skin sensor thing, I can fairly easily adapt my code to work with that technology. But I will definitely be looking more into the, you know, what you guys are talking about, the brainwave monitoring, the EEG sensing stuff that is just now hitting the market. And from what I hear you guys saying, I mean, it sounds like it's working. Is that the general consensus?
Like that's more around like detecting the REM state, and I think that's been like pretty well.
That's what I'm saying. Does it work? Does it work? Do you guys, whatever signal that they're sending out, are you seeing it in your dreams, whether you go lucid or not? Do they work? Do they work? Is there a track record? I mean, that's the thing about Dr. LeBerg and all of his stuff. He's got tried and true records on the percent of effectiveness. And all these other people really don't have that information. But, I mean, the reviews that'll be coming out on the internet here shortly, they go a long way. And so, I don't know. I'll be looking into it.
I mean, I wonder how much it varies depending on, you know, level of lucid dreamer. Like if you get someone who is a pretty stable lucid dreamer naturally, and then you whack a mask on them and tell them like, okay, now in addition to your own natural abilities, like we're going to help you out. Essentially, I would wonder, you know, if you'd have really effective results with that in comparison to whacking a mask or a light system or a sound system or whatever it is on someone who's, you know, never had a lucid dream before or had like one in their life, you know?
Totally. It gets to the importance of, you know, having some of these studies on the front end to demonstrate in a like diverse, big population that this is effective in quantifying the rates. And I think that's going to help whatever company does that kind of get around like some of the skepticism based on past efforts that haven't worked out. So it kind of gets around like the snake oil feeling if like a company can produce a study and maybe like collaborate with it, like researchers to like prove it on the front end. Like maybe there can be this collaboration between researchers and people developing the device to both develop the right algorithms, but then also validate that it works in a way that they can use as a marketing tool, like out to people that are thinking about buying it. They're like, hey, the X percent of people that this did work. But yeah, I totally agree that it's like it gets confounded with who's testing it and other factors for sure.
I mean, I would be totally down for something like, I don't know if it's even possible, but with this group of people, like if we all purchased some kind of silicon thing and then all had a group where we're coding it together and testing it out and then coming back weekly and altering the codes and that kind of thing, I think we could actually make some good progress on something.
Totally. I think that that's where this group gets more and more powerful as we grow it. And then we have this, group of people that are willing to try new things and document their experience, and just kind of like self-report, like their experiences on things. And like, hopefully like we can get to the point where we can actually quantify lucid dreams more automatically to kind of get around the subjectivity of self-report. But like as we grow this community, I think we get this pool of like willing study participants at the same time that can only help push things forward.
Yeah, I really like that idea. If I would like to get one of the either like Reddit or Facebook group or something, like something kind of already, like if we could get it active, because like I could post questions I have with my project. And maybe Jay, Joseph, or whoever can post things that they're working on and get some feedback.